Devin, how are you today?
Doing good.
Good. So today we're going to be talking about the inquiry. I know that you've been doing some work on it, so want to share with me what you have so far?
Well, after assessing my students, doing kind of an entry-level assessment, I want to focus on kind of integrating anatomy and injury prevention and just making sure that my dancers are more well-rounded and when they're, technically executing movements, they're doing as safely as possible because I think I'm trying to explain to them and, let them know that if their body is broken, they're not going to dance. It's not it's their instrument. If they're not, performing and moving correctly, they're more prone to injury, and then they're out, and they won't be able to train. They won't, continue their growth. So that's kind of my area of focus right now.
Okay, that's great, because I know that we talked about that last time when we had our post-observation conversation last time about the incorporating, anatomy and kind of going cross-curricular. So what are you thinking might be your question?
The question I was thinking was maybe how can I organize my lessons to integrate anatomy and injury prevention? And I know even now they're 55-minute classes. I lose 5 minutes at the beginning and end for them to dress, and there's just so much I'm trying to shove in there in 45 minutes. And it takes a long time to warm them up, but just really trying to find a good way to integrate it without taking away from their training and in that part also, hopefully I'll have less injuries and I'll lose less class time to that, and my dancers will be safer, which is really the most important thing, because if they can't train, then I can't teach them. And so that's my focus question for this inquiry.
Okay, and so what CSTP do you think that's going to focus on?
I was looking at 3.3, so organizing curriculum to facilitate students' understanding of subject matter. Okay. And it's very cross-curricular. A lot of my students are, sophomores and freshmen in high school, so they can make connections to their biology classes. And so, in their biology, they can think about their training, and I think bringing the two subjects together will just, in both subject areas, make them stronger students.
Great. So what do you think is going to be like the end result from all of this?
Well, that my students will have a basic understanding of anatomy and injury prevention, but also that I have less injuries in the classroom. I have stronger dancers. I have more powerful dancers. They're, learning how to use their bodies so they're more dynamic and they understand how, the muscles work, and they can just develop stronger. I think that would be really the focus.
So how do you think you're going to measure that your students are actually understanding the anatomy and injury prevention?
Definitely by a basic anatomy test, going through the bone, the skeleton, and the muscular system. And then also, one way I would do it, it's here, is to give them a theories test, and that they can actually show me through pictures, they can show me inappropriate use of the body. So if you see here, the foot is sickled backwards, and it's really bad for the ankle joint, and it can damage the Achilles tendon. They can tell me that's incorrect or correct. And then they can discuss why and what's going on right here. Not only that they can execute it, but they can think about it and explain it. And then another way I would do it would be, I use a dance evaluation rubric. And it's a good way to do kind of a summative assessment of them. It's a lot of work, but it allows them to see where their growth and development is. So I score them based on posture and placement, use of spine, use of space, movement quality and placement, foot mechanics, which means the correct use, they'll be less likely to injure themselves. And just through probably about 20 different areas. And it gives them a really good idea of where they need to focus their training, where they need to strengthen, where their strengths are, because that's important, so they know where they can focus their work. So those are the 3 ways I would assess them.
Great. Okay, so it sounds like you're really sure about your question, you know what your results might look like. Tell me a little bit about your action plan. What research do you think that you're going to do to have this outcome?
A couple things that I wanted to do was just some basic ballet technique training, get myself back into the classroom, see what other teachers are doing, how they're preparing their students, but also kind of get my body moving again, since I had 3 kids, it's hard to get back into that, but it's important that I'm in there working my muscles and thinking about what I'm doing. So, and just really seeing how other teachers are integrating this type of stuff with their students. The other thing I did was I interviewed Mrs. Stripling, who is our modern dance teacher, but she also teaches stretch and strengthen and does a lot of injury prevention. It's a huge focus of just the anatomy, and so I wanted to see how she was integrating. I sat in on a couple of her classes and saw how she worked with her students, and it's really the focus of that specific class. So it was nice to see just how she was making it work and getting feedback and just talking to her. I interviewed her, and she looked over some of my materials and gave me some feedback and showed me what she was using, and so that was really helpful, really, really helpful. And then the other thing is due to lack of time, I'm still trying to find ways to do stuff, provide resources for my students outside of the classroom. So if I don't have time in class, we can have discussions online. So thanks to you, I did some Edmodo training, and I have my classes set up on Edmodo. And then I took a class through the University of San Diego, and it was Web 2.0 for the classroom, like integrating the resources online for your students. And so a lot of my information I can just put up there. They can access it. We can discuss it after classroom time's over. And our discussions don't have to end just because class has. And that's allowed me to just put a lot of resources up there. So if my student's struggling with tendonitis, I can put some helpful hints of what they can do.
So you already told me how you're implementing the technology piece that you've learned through Edmodo. How else might you apply some of the things that you learned from the teacher and your other research?
Well, she gave me some worksheets to work with my classes, and what I tried to do first was, get the kids warmed up, go over this stuff, and then continue on with class. And I realized it's kind of a inefficient way to use the time. So on Wednesdays we have a shortened schedule, so I set aside the entire period, and we were able to go through it. I had the dancers find some of the muscles on their bodies. We went through some basic movements, and we'd go through a simple plie, and we'd discuss what we're stretching and why we're stretching and the injuries it's preventing. The more elastic your plie is. And so I found that using Wednesday time was it was a better use of time.
Great. So other than using some of this stuff, what other impacts do you think that you're having on student achievement or teaching?
Well, from the start, I'm seeing that some of my students that were struggling with jumping and stuff, there's a lot more power in their body. They're using their energy better. I'm not freaking out when they're, popping their heels. They're these simple little things that could lead to an ankle being rolled. And even though I tell them over and over again, I think they're understanding why I'm constantly saying the same thing over and over again. There's a reason behind it, and that I want them to be safe. And so I definitely, they look stronger. And I can see that, when I evaluate them. So through my evaluation, their dance rubric, I can see that when it comes to posture and placement, they're holding themselves a little bit more carefully. They're protecting their body. That's really what I'm looking to protect their instrument so they can continue to grow as dancers.
Good. So it looks like you've done a lot of work and that you found a lot of information that's going to be useful in the classroom.
Thank you.